Waiting to go live here. Ron, are you live yet? Because
I'm live. I'm live
you're
already.
live.
Yeah.
You're live already. You're always live before I am.
Starts at the ocean.
It starts at the ocean. Wait. Oh, there we go. All right.
Boom.
We are now live on my side too. Welcome everybody. Today is November 17th, 2022. It's a Thursday. I'm Tina-Desiree Berg. I'm here with my co-host Ron Placone, and we're going to be going through some Nancy Pelosi hits and failures since she is now not going to be head of the House anymore. Yep. And we are also looking at the unionization coming across the board. We've got Starbucks. We've got UC. We've got a whole bunch of folks waking up to labor movement and joining in strikes. And then also, we're going to be doing Right-Wing Insanity Report live today. My special guest will be Steve Monacelli, who covers right-wing extremism for Rolling Stone and other folks. So he'll be joining us at the top of the hour. And we are going to go through Andy Ngo's testimony this week. There was a court case, John Hacker versus the state of Oregon. Basically, John Hacker, who is an individual that is a citizen journalist, I'm sure he does some activism too up there in Portland, but he was being accused of third-degree robbery, of stealing Andy Ngo's phone. We'll let you see the video of that interaction. He ends up not being, he's not guilty. So, but I think the more interesting aspect of the trial was actually Andy Ngo's testimony. So we're going to go through that today and some other things. So welcome. How's everybody doing? How are you, Ron?
I'm good, Tina. How are you? You feeling better? I know you were a little.
I'm feeling better. Yeah. So I had the flu at the beginning of the week. Yeah.
And you know what? Better. You know what'll cure Tina's flu-like symptoms? If you smash that like button. Smash the like button. It's a flu cure.
It's a flu cure. It is. I'm going to go with that.
Don't report that in the medical journal. That's not. It's not sound science. But
we're gonna get our video demonetized by YouTube for spreading disinformation.
Oh man, well, smash the like button anyway. It isn't known to cure anything except for your sadness about not smashing the like button.
Right.
That's sound science.
That is sound science. So right off the top, let's talk about Nancy Pelosi, who's no longer going to be seeking re-election for Democratic leadership. Looks like the GOP has gotten control of the House now. So this morning she basically said that she was not going to be seeking re-election. So let's go ahead and play a clip on that.
My friends, no matter what title you all, my colleagues, have bestowed upon me, speaker, leader, whip, there is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
Is it the end of an era?
It's the end of an error. I mean, I don't know. Well, let me ask you this question. When do you think is the last time she did anything related to her district?
All right, I can answer that question. So my personal take on Nancy Pelosi is that she actually does do that. I think what we have to keep in mind is that her district is skewed to the very wealthy. I think the average median income there is $160,000 to $170,000 a year.
Okay.
So I think that she absolutely does represent that group, right? She's got 6 or 7 billionaires that live in her district. So is there tension there with the state of California? Yes. Is there tension there with progressives in the party? Absolutely. Is there tension with her actually governing towards the general constituency outside of just being a wealthy person? Yeah, 100%. But I mean, that is part and part of the problem, right?
Well, I think it's a huge part of the freaking problem. And I think Nancy Pelosi really represents I mean, not obviously she's not the only villain. There are many, but she is one of them who I think represents everything that is wrong with our politics. She has stood in the way of pretty much every progressive policy, especially within the past few years. And what has she really done? I mean, I take your point that it's like, well, she has a bunch of billionaires in her district, so she has their back. That's a fair point. But it's like, what does she do other than raise money? Like, that's all she does.
Well, for the party, yeah, that's a big part of why they like her. Yeah, she's a huge money raiser. That's all she does, correct. And she has her yearly jauntlet out to Napa Valley where she invites people of power, Democratic leadership, whatnot, and they come out there to Napa Valley and they do a whole planning session and fundraising. So that is definitely part of it, too.
Who knows what else they do?
Who knows? Drink wine? At her estate, so I mean, she is very much disconnected with your average American, in my opinion. So when she gets criticism from right wingers, and it's sort of centered on this idea that she's only governing to the elite, that she's tone deaf to the income inequality, whatnot, you have a moment where you're like, yeah, they're not wrong on that.
They're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, like I think they're 110% right. That's totally fair to say. She would be considered a fringe right-wing politician in any other Democratic experiment. The fact that she's considered an alternative to the right in the United States, that's like the only place where she'd be. I mean, she is against living wages. She is against universal health care. She is against, she mocks the very idea of doing anything about climate change. Good riddance. Of course, she's like stepping down at a time where it's like they don't even have the House anyway. I will, if I have to search for one decent thing to say, I will say I'm glad that she at least has the awareness to know that it's time for a new generation to step in. I'm sure she wants to see it. I'm sure she would rather see it be the Pete Buttigieg, Joe Kennedy wing of the Democratic Party as opposed to the squad and stuff like that. But, at least she's aware that it's time for her to step aside. But it'd be nice if she had that awareness a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is a problem. So, in California, we have a special blend of, I'd say 50% of the Democratic Party here is this blend of super progressive on social issues. But when it comes to money issues, they're very laissez-faire, which is, you're right. So most other countries, this would be considered a right-wing political position, right?
Yeah.
So, I flash back to that time when she said, we're capitalist, that's just the way it is. Nancy, that might be the case that we are, capitalist in this country, but that doesn't mean that we let it go unfettered and unchecked. Just bringing back some of the policies that FDR was a champion for would make a huge difference as far as correcting the rampant income inequality. The fact of the matter is the 1%, the plutonium in this country, has extracted so much wealth, and they're sitting on so much wealth that if they stopped making money tomorrow, it wouldn't make a difference. They're just that filthy rich. And meanwhile, half the country is suffering deeply. So we're worse off now, the new Gilded Age, right? We're worse off now than we were in the 20s in this capacity. So yeah. I do think, in one sense, it is the end of an era. Which direction this goes in now, I think, depends, right? So on the left, on the Democratic Party, are they going to look to replace her with, like you said, somebody from the squad that's more progressive, or from that, area of the party? Or are they going to go with somebody that's more interested in fundraising for the party? So I think
they're definitely going to go with the fundraiser.
I was going to say the danger is that, because they're addicted to the money.
Well, or they'll go with, if they think that somebody who is better in the court of public opinion, if they're convinced they'll play it the company way, they might give them an olive branch, but that's the only way. And again, it's like, they got to be convinced they'll play it the company way. So, I'm glad. Of course, there's a sense of relief that it's like she's stepping, out of this position, that's good. She's needed to go for a long time, but yeah, who knows if that's not necessarily a guarantee it'll get better. So we'll see. And as far as, I can't really, I don't really have anything positive to say as far as the send-off goes. I won't see it at any of the donor dinners. I never got an invite, or it got lost in the mail. So I won't be seeing you there. Whatever. And you know what? I want to also mention this. She really gets a huge pass for how little she did as far as doing anything to stop Trump. She did. I mean, the fact that like nobody, I mean, people are still blaming Jill Stein voters 6 years later and counting. Meanwhile, it's like you go back to 2020, you know, Trump had he ended up with 3 Supreme Court picks. 2 of them could have easily been prevented. First of all, and this isn't Nancy Pelosi's fault, but if Obama actually would have demanded the pick that was right for his. So that takes out 1. Then the other one, it was a couple months before the election. Donald Trump had been impeached. Nancy Pelosi, she could have put every stall bill that she could have thought of, just thrown it in there, it in there. You only had to wait out the clock a couple months. She could have threatened a government shutdown. She could have just rattled the court of public opinion and said, hey, this guy's impeached. We need to let the people decide, because Mitch McConnell wanted the people to decide when that was a year before the election. Here, we're just like 2 months. She did nothing. She did absolutely nothing. And while they were doing the whole impeachment theatrical performance, they were fast-tracking all of Trump's judges at lower levels.
Yeah. That's true. 100 of them, at least, that I'm aware of. That's true.
Yeah, literally, yes.
Yeah.
And so she gets a pass for all that. Meanwhile, she was the leader of the, quote, resistance. By the way, she signed all of, she kind of was on board for extending the Patriot Act. She was on board with some of the biggest military budgets of all time. But, one time she tore up a speech when the cameras are on. Ooh, leader.
I forgot about that.
What a freaking joke. And she still gets a pass for it. Yeah. It is mind-boggling. People will blame people who voted for Jill Stein, some of the most powerless people in the freaking country, like people who just we lose an election as soon as we walk into the voting booth. You know, like being a leftist in the United States, you just lose constantly. In fact, I'll mention this as an aside. Kenneth Mejia, who just won city controller in Los Angeles, for me personally, that is literally the first time in my life where somebody I supported from the beginning, i.e. the primary, has won an election that I was able to vote for. The first time in my freaking life ever. And it's for a local position for city controller. I'm hoping it's not the last, and I'm hoping it's the start of a new tomorrow. But it's literally...
Can we digress into that for a second? Because I think what Ken Mejia did, which was really amazing, and I don't know that folks outside of LA would know about this because they wouldn't have seen this. So, I mean, he's running for the controller's office. This is normally considered a very boring political position, right? You're basically the CPA for the city, keep tabs on all these things. But previously, and only probably journalists and a few dedicated activists would know this. If you tried to get information on city budget items, right? So there was a website you could access, but it was literally impossible to find anything. Information was very convoluted, was not easy to use. So what he did that was a really smart idea is he created a shadow website, and it had this great search. It has a great search. It's still there. It's a great search function in it. All the data makes more sense. It's easily accessible. So I think him doing that and constantly putting it out there on billboards, and social media advertising and whatnot, people started going to the site and be like, wait, what? We're spending $600,000 a year for boot shining stuff for police boots? Is this a thing? How are we spending $600K on this? So it was a very smart move on his part, I think. It was very illuminating for the city of LA to see where all their money was going. And it really gave this idea that politicians can be transparent. Yeah. Should be transparent. The city budget should be transparent. And I think that's why he won the election. It just by a huge bit. Not even,
And again, a lot of people outside of LA might not realize this. He ran for city controller, which, just saying the title is, I got a little tired just fucking saying it, but he made it, he made it
sexy.
He made it sexy. Yes, exactly. He made it sexy. And as of right now, and it looks like this is probably how it's going to end, he got more votes than anybody running for anything. He got more votes than
dominated.
Yeah, like he got more votes
Dominated.
than Karen Bass did, who just won
Right.
LA mayor. So obviously he got more votes than Rick Caruso did, who spent
100%.
$100 million. He got more votes than a guy who spent $100 million. And what
Yep.
did he have? He had a young crew of content creators and brilliant minds who did
Right.
that billboard campaign. He ran an excellent campaign. It is so inspiring. And a lot of those people that were beside him, they're kids in their freaking 20s.
Yeah, they're in their 20s. Yeah, I've had the
amazing.
pleasure of interviewing Ken a couple times, and
He's great.
and his campaign manager. I agree with you. They're all very young and energetic, and they want to change the world. Also, a week before the election, there was this ridiculous flyer that came out. I don't know if you got it at your house. It was trying to paint Ken as like some Russian asset, where
I
he
saw
was
the
pro-Trump. Like, it was just a bizarre.
And it didn't work. I mean, look. So
It didn't
I
work.
guess we can't stay too LA centric
No,
too long.
I know.
here for people.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? To put a period on this topic, in a world of Nancy Pelosi's, be a
Don't
kind
be-
of media.
be a
And
kind of
hopefully that's the tomorrow we're looking
Right.
at.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
Ciao, Nancy. Arrivederci. Ciao.
Arrivederci, ciao. All right, so we'll see what direction that takes. Republicans win back control of the House with a very narrow majority right now. We obviously don't have all of the election results yet, but they have hit that mark. So I wanted to put up this AP News article. Colin, if you can pull that one up. Oh, excellent. Okay, so Republicans won control of the U.S. House on Wednesday, returning the party to power in Washington and giving conservatives leverage to blunt President Joe Biden's agenda and spur a flurry of investigations. But a threadbare majority will pose immediate challenges for GOP leaders and complicate the party's ability to govern. More than a week after Election Day, Republicans secured the 218th seat needed to flip the House from Democratic control. The full scope of the party's majority may not be clear for several more days or weeks, as votes in competitive races are still being counted. But they are on track to cobble together what could be the party's narrowest majority of the 21st century, rivaling 2001, when Republicans had just a 9-seat majority, 221 to 212 with 2 independents. That's far short of the sweeping victory the GOP predicted going into this year's midterm elections, when the party hoped to reset the agenda on Capitol Hill by capitalizing on economic challenges and Biden's lagging popularity. I think it's interesting to note the amount of gerrymandering that goes into the House.
Oh
So
God, yeah. It's
a lot of these. Oh, go ahead.
It's everywhere. I mean, it's
everywhere.
just everywhere, and that's the only reason. I mean, that's the only reason our politics are ever close. It's because it's just gerrymandered to high hell. And by the way, Republicans do it the most, but Democrats do it too. And when do Democrats do it? They do it when a freaking lefty grassroots candidate builds some momentum. That's when they do it. They did it here in California when Fatima Iqbal Zubair was doing well. They did it to Summer Lee out in Pennsylvania. She ended up winning anyway. So it's a bipartisan effort. Republicans are the main culprits, but Democrats do it too when they can screw over a lefty most of the time.
Right.
So-
Not necessarily at the state house level, but yeah, at the local level, we just re-gerrymandered the LA City Council districts in a way that absolutely does not make sense.
Yeah. Well, they did
but,
it at the state. They did it at state here with Fatima. They definitely did it in my area. They did it
Well,
with Fatima Iqbal Zubair.
Well, they gerrymander, but it's based on an independent council here. Like, so I'd say like Iowa, California, and a handful of other states, it's less extreme than what you're going to see in some of the other states. Like Pennsylvania, for example, I haven't looked at this election's data, but in the past, there's been times when you'll see the popular vote going to the Democratic Party if you're just looking at House votes, and yet like 19 of the House seats go to the Republicans, where it just is like, what happened here? How does that make sense? So there's obviously a spectrum, is my point, of which this occurs.
I don't disagree with that, but so is it less extreme in California?
Yeah.
That's fair. Is it non-existent? No, it's still
No,
here. It happens.
yeah, I'm not saying it's non-existent. I think probably the cleanest is Iowa, actually. They generally have a 50-50 on par, believe it or not. Just going to share that with you. All right, so one of the House districts that we still don't know about is CO3. This is Boebert's election. Last week, I thought she was losing. I thought it was done. Yeah, what happened here?
Oh man!
All of a sudden, it's been a nail biter for a week now. She's now ahead by, I think, a little over 1,100 votes. But what might happen, I think, is they're going to trigger a recount because it's within 1%. So that's just something that happens in Colorado. But I think in the meantime, tomorrow's Friday, so we'll hear tomorrow on whether or not that's going to happen. So right now, there's a thing that happens with a lot of the mail-in ballots where they have to verify signatures. We have this problem in California as well. Other states do it has this problem as well too. So it's across the country. But when they verify a signature,
if it comes down to a recount, and if she doesn't win, her fans are going to go freaking nuts.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because like her
stop
fans,
the steal. Yeah.
Her fans are like QAnon and stuff like that. So if it comes down to, okay, it's so close, we got to do a recount, like unless she wins, they'll be crying foul to high heavens.
They already are probably. Yeah, 100%. So basically what's happening right now is there are folks that didn't get their ballots counted because there was a problem with the signature, wasn't sure if that was quite right or some other issues. So what happens is they give a notice out to those folks, or they can go online and type in their ballot number and see if their ballot got counted. If there's a problem, you have an opportunity to go and verify that it's actually your ballot and it's fine. We do this here in California as well. So this might be going on for 2 more weeks where we don't know who's in charge of that election or who's winning that election. And literally last week we were like, Boebert's out. She's going to lose. Like, right? Nope.
I guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out. So keep an eye on that one, but that is definitely one that will be interesting. I think if she does, I mean, listen, the fact that she is so close to her challenger is actually quite remarkable, because that is absolutely a gerrymandered district, and it is very much Boebert's people in her district. So the fact that that guy is as close as he is pretty remarkable, I think.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but I don't know. This isn't horseshoes. If she wins, she still wins, and that's still a vote, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So any other thoughts on the GOP taking over the House? Like, what do you think that's going to go? Seems pretty late and
It's what
done.
I predicted. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think this is what most people were predicting. They were predicting GOP was going to take the House by some. Democrats were going to, like, keep the Senate by a little bit. And, you know, the sea of excuses will keep coming in the next 2 years.
Yeah, nothing will change. Hey, Colin, can you put up that AP article again? I sort of want to scroll down, and there's this great chart in there that shows from 1981 to 2021, the back and forth of the House elections. Yeah, awesome. Yep, that was it. It's kind of small. So I thought this was kind of an
hourglass.
It looks like many things. This is like a Rohrbacher. Is it Rohrbacher's one of those like psychological test things? The ink spots? Okay, never mind.
No, I know where you're going with that. Mine was the less nerdy version of what you just said.
The less nerdy version. So, I mean, back and forth, like it's almost like a pendulum, right? So this is like how the House has been for so many years. And I think the fact that they don't have control of the Senate, which is probably a good thing. That'll make it more of a lame duck session, meaning not much is going to get through. Any like drastically crazy bills that they try to push through are going to get checked, in my opinion.
Well, that's what you hope. I mean, Biden's a pretty right-wing guy at the end of the day. So it's like, I mean, I kind of worry that it's like when he says I'm really good at reaching across the aisle to Republicans, he doesn't mean he's good at getting them on board with decent things. He's already telling people, don't get your hopes up on abortion rights, which is him saying, hey, mister,
yeah,
I can reach across the aisle. I can't get one Republican on board for anything. So what he really means by that is like, hey, I'm a right-wing guy, so I'm willing to do some terrible things with them. So, you know, I mean, there's a reason for concern. But
there's a reason for concern, yeah. I don't think I just think that the Senate will be a backstop, though, to some more crazy things. Anything that is going to come from SCOTUS, I think that is more troubling, going into the next. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. And you also got, I mean, the Senate, you still got your Joe Manchins. You still got, and again, it just comes down to the votes. I mean, some they won't vote for a certain thing because they know it'll make them look bad, like Democrats, that is. But you have your Joe Manchins who are happy playing the villain. So, yeah, we'll see what the next 2 years brings. I mean, it'll be. There were definitely some reasons for optimism in this election,
Right.
but most of it was on, kind of the local level and on the ballot initiative level and the, labor level, which, we do have some optimism later in this show if we want to move over to Starbucks now.
Yeah, we will. I just want to ask you real quickly though, Summer Lee. I know that we talked about her last week. Do you think she's going to have any real influence?
I hope so. I mean, we're in a time right now where every single freaking vote has influence. Where,
Okay.
because it is so neck and neck, it is so narrow. And again, I really hope that somebody steps up and leads the squad and gets them to vote as a unit. That's all I want to see happen. That's not an unreasonable request. That's not a complaining request. That is a fair request as far as this is how you get stuff done when you are going up against the elite in your party. So I hope that she or somebody else kind of steps up and says, we have to start acting as a block where people need to come to us and we need to demand concessions or they don't get the types of things they want to happen.
Yeah.
So whether
Play
it's
chicken a little bit. Yeah, come from a place of power. Yeah.
that's how it, and when you work as a unit, that's how you get the most out of what leverage you have, because otherwise
Right.
your only leverage is one vote.
Right.
And even if it's just 7 or 8 votes, that's more than one. So
Well, it's enough to prevent something from happening.
Yeah.
If they vote, if they come together as a block and they say to the more mainstream Democrats, we're going to withhold our vote on this issue unless you give us this in concession. If they started doing things like that, then yeah, I think it could affect change. But the question is, are they willing to do that? We've seen in the past, not so much, that they just kind of fold,
absolutely.
right?
They fold completely. I mean, every single time it's just enough. So my hope is that maybe some of the new faces will kind of step up. And
Yeah, I
a lot of
think they'll
people
be
are
less
optimistic
jaded.
about-
So
Sure, and or maybe they're just more of a fiber. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
More of a
it's tough
fighter.
to say right now. I'd like to give people a chance.
the benefit, yeah,
Like
no.
I'm not gonna be like, I have no idea if Summer Lee's gonna be that person or not. It'd be great if she is. I know some people who think
She
highly
has,
of her.
yeah. She seems like
Let's
she's
see.
got some good positions and is willing to go to the mat on something. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on that. I do think it would be great to have a block of voters that are willing to actually stand up and say, no, unless you give us this, we're not going to give you our yes vote, because that can absolutely stop something from passing. So they need to use their strength in that capacity.
That's how
All right,
politics
so
works.
that is how
that's
politics
literally
works,
just how
but-
politics works. And when you
A
only
lot of
have
it's
two,
fear, Ron. I think they come from a place of fear. I think they're afraid that if they don't, get in line with some of these things, that idea that no, the other guy's worse, or the outcome if we don't do this is going to be much worse. I think that is part of the equation, especially if you're young. And a lot of these squad members are young. They're new to politics, so they're easily kind of pushed into that direction. I think probably it's going to take a certain personality to stand up to a Schumer and be like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. I understand that Trump is a fascist, but
I understand
in
that,
the meantime,
but
this
that's
isn't
what
going to
got
work for
them
me.
elected. That's
Right,
what
I
got them
agree. The
elected.
income inequality and all of
That's
these
what they
things.
ran on. So I mean,
I
it's
agree.
look, I understand that. I understand they're outnumbered. I understand all that, and I certainly take it into account. But you gotta kind of form a block, and you gotta kind of say, our people are out there. They got us elected. You can't just walk all over us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like that has to happen, and it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't
And this is
happened.
why we need something beyond the duopoly. Because when you have a duopoly, it's easier to just co-opt people, and more proportional representative systems. Yeah, the communists, the socialists, labor, they might not hold a ton of seats, but they hold a couple. So people need to go to them to get them on board with policies. So guess what? The center
Yeah.
party is actually a center party, not a right-wing party. The center-left party is actually a center-left party, not a right-wing party. And it is a much less severe politics compared to ours. So
I agree. Ranked choice voting, I think, would help in that. And we had Nevada passed. I'm trying to see. I know there was a second one. Nevada did pass their ranked choice ballot initiative, so they're going to have ranked choice in their next election. I think the areas where you do have that, it does allow for that. So we should,
ranked choice is definitely a step in a better direction. I mean, so
all right.
yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens in the electoral space.
I want to talk, so I want to talk about unions. They're, continuing their march. A lot of worker-supported unions, a lot of worker activity is out there. I think it might end up producing more results against income inequality than anything in the political sphere. So today, I want to show you Starbucks. The unions in Starbucks are having a Red Cup Rebellion Day, is what they're calling it. So this is the start of the Christmas holiday season. And they normally have their specific Starbucks cup that they would give out. So I want to put, yes, thank you. Thank you, Colin. You read my mind. So these are the cups that they are giving out instead of the company Starbucks cup. So you'll see that it says Starbucks United is on there. So if you go to certain locations, that is the cup that you are getting today instead of the actual Starbucks Red Cup.
A bunch of the stores are going on strike, which, so this just goes to show you, and we dropped a short video on this earlier. These union efforts are amazing and it's awesome, but they're also realizing they need to take the next step. And hey, what's one of the reasons you get a union for? So you have a strategy ready when you need to strike. And look at what Howard Schultz is doing, folks. It's like I said earlier, Howard Schultz loves breaking labor laws even more than he loves burning coffee beans. And boy, does he love to frickin' burn coffee beans. So look at all the laws he's just broken so far. And this is just an abbreviated summary. He told pro-union workers, oh, you don't like it here, go find somewhere else to work. That's illegal. You can't do that, especially not when you're the CEO. He tried to unroll benefit packages to non-union workers and deny them to union workers. You can't do that. That is illegal. And the labor board is intervening time and time again saying you can't freaking do this. So the unionized stores are saying, okay, not only are you not meeting us with meeting our demands, you're not even inviting us to the freaking table. You're trying to block us from even having a seat. So guess what? Time for plan B. We're going on frickin' strike. And they're going on strike, and then they're handing up these cups to try to turn some of Starbucks' own marketing against itself. It's chef's kiss beautiful. I frickin' love it. And this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen. They're striking because they have no other choice. They tried to play it the easy way.
Right.
Not the easy way, but they tried to play it nice and be like, okay, we're going to union because we need representation. And
Indeed.
Howard Schultz had the option to be like, okay, I get it. I'm going to meet with the union. Let's reach an agreement. He chose not to. Not only did he choose not to, but he chose to be as cruel and brutal about it as he could. Shocker, his presidential campaign didn't work out, by the way. He seems like such a nice, likable guy. But
well, is it a bad time to mention that Hillary Clinton wanted to appoint him as the labor secretary?
She sure can pick him, But between that and the Tim Kaine VP pick, I mean, what could you. And it's funny because there was a point in time, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a point in time where Starbucks was among, I don't want to say they were great, but compared to a lot of the other big corporations, they were less evil. They gave benefits to employees.
To part-timers before other people did. That's true, yeah.
They used to have a good tuition remission package for employees. They used to do that. And then all of a sudden it just
billionaire brain. It's called billionaire brain. You hit a certain income level and your brain just goes into this mush greed thing. I mean, I just don't know how else you explain it. But every billionaire is a policy failure. It just leads to this kind of crap.
Or I think another honest possibility is that he was just doing it as a brand investment. Like he was just doing it
100%.
Because he knew that
he knew his market.
He knew his market, and he knew that he was completely homogenizing the coffee shop culture, which a lot of people were not okay with. I mean, I was one of them. And so he knew he has to kind of put a good look on that. So if it's just he does these nice things for his employees and this and that, then it's maybe Starbucks isn't so bad. I'm going to, pay $25 for this coffee themed milkshake or whatever the hell it is. You know, like it's just easier to kind of like put a nice face on it. And then once you kind of have everything cornered, you can sort of take your mask off, which is what he did.
Yeah.
So
no,
that's
it's crazy. Yeah, he's a giant union buster, obviously. Which is, you know, it's just another example, as far as I'm concerned, where the Democratic Party, or in particular the third way version of the Democratic Party, these are the Clinton group, right? So the third way group.
Yeah, where that is the Democratic Party at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest.
I think that is true. I think they're becoming less so. I think that is slowly changing. But, you know, when he came into presidency in 1996, he sold America on this idea of incorporating what is now commonly referred to as neoliberal principles, where the market is the moral arbiter, so to speak, and, you know, privatization and all of these things. You know, NAFTA, I mean, I think back on the NAFTA. NAFTA was originally George Bush Sr.'s bill. It wasn't Clinton's bill. Bush could not get it through Congress. He couldn't do it. But Clinton slid it right through. So this is where the worst aspects of economic policy from both parties come together and get pushed through, because it only serves the very wealthy in this country and the corporations. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. All right, moving to Bernie Sanders' tweet. Bernie Sanders tweeted out this morning. I want to show a series of tweets on who is supporting the Red Cup Rebellion. So Bernie Sanders, I'm proud to stand with Starbucks workers on strike today across the country. CEO Howard Schultz is illegally union busting and firing workers for organizing. Mr. Schultz, it is time to recognize the stores that unionized and negotiate with workers in good faith. Hashtag Red Cup Rebellion.
Right on.
Right on. And then Fetterman also came out, our newly elected Fetterman. I am proud to give my full support to these workers standing up against Starbucks' disgusting union-busting tactics. Solidarity with those striking in Pittsburgh and Philly and across the country today. So this is actually a good shot where you can see the actual corporate Starbucks Red Cup that they're supposed to be using and what they're actually using, the union one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and let's go. I mean, you know, John Fetterman, hopefully
he's a union guy. Yeah,
he is a union guy. Hopefully he continues to go in this direction. I know some people, you know, and I'm one of them. It's kind of like, well, where do you stand, dude? At one point he was for Medicare for all. Now it's not clear if he's for it or not. It seems like he's not. You know, at first he was against fracking. Now he's for it. So it's like, all right, man, where you at? Where you at, dude?
So,
and
Medicare for all is a tough one when you're having this in discussion with unions. So there's a lot of unions that don't support Medicare for all because they see their union plans as a selling point to increase membership into the union. I've had this conversation with a lot of union leaders. I think that's eventually going to change because they cannot afford to maintain their union health plans anymore. It's just too expensive, and the what they have to offer for the money, for the premium, so to speak, isn't as good as it used to be. So they're also hurting under that. But for a long time, unions didn't want to talk about Medicare for all because it was one of their main pitches to getting people to join the union is like, you get our health plan and it's superior to what you're going to get from the corporate health plan. So I think that's changing, but it's definitely been a point of discussion between these two groups.
And I understand that some people are you know, you're kind of scared to let go of what you see as like working, but at the end of the day, it's not working. And also, like, we need to get away from healthcare being tied to a job.
I 100% agree.
The whole point of a union should not be like, well, we have a good healthcare plan.
No, it should be to get higher wages. Yeah,
it should be to protect you. And so 100%. If all a union has to offer its members is like, well, our healthcare plan's not bad, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing as a union. And let's be honest, there's some unions out there who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing as a union. So any union that says, oh, well, we're against Medicare for all because our healthcare plan is going well, I'm going to be like, well, you're not really doing what you're supposed to as a union then.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that has been a sticking point between these two groups for the last few years. I see that changing, though. All right, so I want to put up the next tweet. This is Teamsters. So I love this shot because it's all of the Teamsters guys standing in front of the Starbucks store where they're on strike with their Teamsters gear. So this is in New York, I believe. Don't mess with the Teamsters. They're hardcore.
Yeah, no, that's a cool
It's a great
photo.
shot,
I like
right?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Teamsters, I mean, they were really behind the big strikes in Seattle
Yeah.
with the concrete workers and stuff like that. And they were behind, I mean, they've been behind a lot of the significant strikes right now, and the railroad strikes. I mean, a lot of the Teamsters, like they're with the railroad strikes right now, which
Yeah,
I
no,
think,
Teamsters they're really about building solidarity with the entire union movement. That's part and parcel to their platform. So it's not uncommon to see them at these things, but I love seeing that. It's a great shot. I want to go to Pittsburgh. One of the union workers there posted this photo. It says, "Union coffee is hot and sexy."
hell yeah, good for them. It's funny, to show you that this really is like really picking up a lot of steam, no pun intended, throughout the country. My sister lives in Pittsburgh, like her and her husband, and they're like, they're progressive minded people, but they're not like, they don't pay attention to things like at the level like, you or I do, you know what I mean? But like they're not like news. But when I was visiting, they made it a point to point out a unionizing Starbucks store. And they were like, this is one of the most recent ones to unionize. Like they knew which store it was and stuff. And I just thought, I was like, that's really cool.
That's
like
great.
this isn't just staying within people who pay attention to labor news. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is reaching the general populace, which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
But I think we're seeing a level of solidarity in the general population right now with the idea of unionized workers and workers' rights, because just about everybody is suffering from some sort of income inequality situation. It is more apparent today, I think, than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, some folks might not see that right as their battle, so to speak, whereas
Sure.
I think that they do now. Of course, I'm having a flashback to Saul Alinsky's book.
Which one?
Rules for Radicals, only because he talks about that next echelon, the 20% or so that tend to hold up the managerial class or the plutonymy, the wealthy elites, because they're not being harmed as much and they can still get by, so they're a little bit less complacent. But that group is sort of disappearing, right? So the stagnation.
It's getting smaller.
It's getting smaller.
I would say it's getting smaller. I would say that number is definitely not 20% anymore.
No, it's definitely
and it continues to get smaller. And eventually it's literally going to be down to 1%.
Yeah,
So-
I mean,
so
if we
like-
continue on this trajectory, yeah. So the mood has changed definitely. I think a lot of the pushback we're seeing out there is because people are like, yeah, you know what? I'm not doing as well as I used to. Maybe I should rethink my stance on this. So less people would be willing, I think, to cross a picket line or to be a scab. Does everybody know what a scab is? A scab is somebody that takes a job when people are on strike. So say the company is like, hey, we're hiring workers because all of our workers on strike. Anybody that would take that job would be referred to as a scab in the union world.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So Ron, you have
Red Cup Rebellion, baby.
Yeah, Red Cup Rebellion. You have a story about direct messages. An update for us on that?
So an interesting little update here. Yeah. So we've been covering the whole Elon Musk thing and Twitter on this show and all the ways he is making that website a disaster. But we did confront him and Fight for the Future, an organization that I collaborate with, confronted him because at one point Elon Musk said, I think DMs should have encryption protection, which I agree with that. I don't agree with Elon Musk on a whole lot, but I do agree with that. And so people retweeted him and they were like, hey, Elon, do you still feel this way? Or did you change your mind now that you're the guy who has access to people's DMs? And there is some speculation out there. Nothing is confirmed yet. But there's some speculation out there that there is actually going to be some encryption protection on your Twitter DMs. Colin, can we pull up the article? There's a little bit of tech jargon in here, but we'll walk you through it. Twitter could end-to-end encrypt your direct messages in the future. That's a weird kind of phrased headline, but end-to-end encryption is a good thing. They're not ending your direct messages. End-to-end encryption. All right, so go ahead and scroll down. So
they're not.
Twitter is reportedly working on bringing end-to-end encryption to the social network's direct messages, with CEO Elon Musk appearing to confirm it. So they were kind of working on this. Some people saw some code for an Android app. So it appears to suggest that work is back underway and that encrypted direct messages are being tested. Scroll down to the tweet, Colin. So this is kind of the tweet that people are pointing to.
Pocket lint? What?
Well, that's just the outlet. This is from Pocket Lint. But there was a tweet further down in the article where somebody was asking about it, and Elon Musk gave like an emoji. So yeah. So
okay, there it is. Okay.
So somebody's bringing up the encryption. That there's some kind of tech jargon there that I really couldn't walk you through. But basically, this is like, oh, are they testing encryption, end-to-end encryption on our DMs? And Elon Musk gives a little winky smiley face. So, don't have anything confirmed yet, but I mean, that could be a little bit of good news. I mean, we still have a long way to go, but a little bit of good news as far as like our DMs go, or at least like Elon Musk won't be able to creep on your DMs.
Are you sure that he wouldn't do it anyway? I'm just saying.
Well, he could change it at any point. I mean, that's the thing. And at the end of the day, folks, even if he does decide to do the right thing in this one, for instance, it should really bother you a ton that some random billionaire could just buy a platform and gets all your DMs just because he freaking feels like it. And you know how we start fighting back? A little bit of antitrust goes a long way. So please go to BidenPromise.us, sign that petition to bring the antitrust bills to a vote. They're making every excuse in the book. Come December 6th, they are out of freaking excuses because the elections will be over, the runoffs will be over. So please, BidenPromise.us. And also, there's another petition out there to just get encryption on all of our DMs across social media, which we desperately need, and that is makedmsafe.com. That full URL is makedmssafe.com. So please do sign that. So we'll see what happens here. Right now, it's just kind of speculation. But yeah, I mean, maybe he's actually following up on that, and he's going to be like, okay, I'll call your bluff this time, and I'll give you something, even though I'm ruining this website.
Yeah, 100%. Well, so there's something going on today too, where people are being locked out of their accounts. Like Dave Anthony just tweeted, haven't been able to tweet from the dollop all day, and so it begins. I don't know why. I mean, what that related to is, and then earlier today, Ben Collins, who covers right-wing extremism for NBC, he had a series of tweets where people were telling him that they were getting locked out of their accounts for retweeting it. So he actually said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if your account got locked in the last hour for retweeting my post about Elon Musk, DM me. Others have DM'd me directly. And then you see a screenshot, and it's just like a bunch of people DMing him saying, yeah, I'm locked out of my account. Now, could these things all be coincidence? Yeah. Could it be part of them messing up code as they're trying to install new things? Possibly. For example, I can't change my name right now. And I've not had this.
Did that. He doesn't let people change the name.
I went to go because I was just like, sometimes for fun, I like to change my name and so it currently says isn't going to pay to keep her blue check. So I was like, okay, I'm done with that joke. I'm going to erase it. But I can't. I'm locked into it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's a little bit of like, well, maybe at least one good thing is happening in a sea of a bunch of ridiculous things, but we'll see. I mean, there's also speculation out there that he might be stepping down soon and handing it off to someone else. Who knows? A lot of speculation right now. So we'll just have to kind of
if he's going towards bankruptcy, I don't see what other plan there could be. I mean, if
he's not going to run out of money, though.
He's not going to run out of money, but he might want to write down the bad debt. I mean, it's the only thing that would make sense to me at this point. If he runs Twitter into the ground, does the bankruptcy, he writes the bad debt off, somebody else takes it over. That would be, I think, for all parties involved at this point, sort of ideal because he's destroying the platform. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Oh, he totally is. So we'll keep an eye on that. How about Tina? We should probably get to some super chats.
Yes.
I'll let everyone know where.
Oh, we have a bunch today. That's very exciting.
Videos. So Robin Bennett, thank you very much for your very generous contribution. We appreciate it so much. Hope you're doing well. Tony DeMayo, what's up, buddy? Hope to see you in Chicago.
Yes.
For 9 months. Oh, member for 9 months. 9 months member Tony DeMayo. Status Coup.
I know you from Twitter. Speaking of Tony, I always read your tweets.
Nancy wants a young corporate tool to replace her. Yep, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I won't even speculate on who that would be, though. Ron, do you have thoughts on that?
Oh, geez. I mean, it could be. I mean,
Like,
take
who
your
would be
pick.
her?
Like,
Yeah.
it could be any number of people. I mean, because really, you have almost everybody in the party except for like 4
10?
people, like maybe 10. Yeah. Tony DeMayo, good to catch Status Coup crew live. Love Tina and Ron. Thank you so much,
Thank
Tony.
you, Tony.
And I hope to see you in Chicago. I'll be there next year, so I can't wait to see you. Peace, Robert Walker. What's up, buddy?
Woo, what's up?
As a 17-year vet at Starbucks, I promise you it was never progressive. It was all PR to get people to spend that money and feel good while doing it. Oh, yeah, totally, Robert. And I'm sure.
So it's part of the brand imaging. That's interesting.
It was part of a brand thing. And I wasn't trying to imply like they were ever like great. They were just, I would say they weren't as bad as something like Walmart at one point in time. And I do know that it seems like things have gotten even worse as far as what they used to offer compared to what they offer now. But I'm sure it was never great, and it was mostly just marketing above all else. And I'm sure you can speak to that a lot because you're a 17-year guy there. So absolutely, I'm with you. Thank you for your thoughts. Good to hear from you. I hope all is well. Happy Thursday. And Rich 4, what's up? Thank you for the super chat contribution. And hope you're having a lovely Thursday too. Chris Garrett, who has been a YouTube member for 18 months. Fight the Power, Tina and Ron, 2 of my favorite left coast progressive and independent journalists. The great work. Thank you so much, Chris. John Ramsey, what's up, buddy? Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Good to see you again. Nancy Bernard, what's up? I am a huge fan of both of you, Tina and Ron. As a progressive senior on a fixed income and a rent-controlled apartment in San Francisco, I can definitely say that Nancy Pelosi has never represented my needs, concerns, or views. Right on, Nancy. Thank you so much for your super chat contribution.
No, Nancy, that's exactly it, right? So if you look at the median income, it's what, 160,000 or so a year. I have to look up, but it's somewhere around there. But there's 2 different stories that can be told here about averages, right? So an average that takes into account 5 on one side, 5 on the other, right? That's 10. It's the same average as if you have 10 on one side and 1 on the other, right? But this 10 on one side and 1 on the other is an entirely different picture of the world than what this is, right? And it's really hard to know. I'm guessing it's more like this at this point, but it's really frustrating because I think the hard part, like when Shahid Buttar, for example, was running against her, it's a hard district to win in if you are progressive because of this really wealthy element that exists in the city. And the way that district is gerrymandered is very much around that contingent of folks. What's happening in the Tenderloin area is just awful.
Well,
the gentrification.
I mean, they've been doing it a long time. They're pushing the creative class out. They've been doing it for years. And it's reached a very extreme level. They're pushing out like basically everything except for like Silicon Valley. And the only thing that's left is people who are rent controlled like Nancy and people who have been there for a long time. There's up in North Beach, there's still some of like the beat culture left and the stuff that made it cool in the 60s. But a lot of those folks, like, I mean, literally they're dying. I mean, they're old now.
And there's just far less rent control apartments out there because of close to Hawkins, which is,
and once they're not there anymore, they're going to rent out, a shoebox for $5,000 or something, Folks,
or live in their cars.
Yeah. Before we get to a few right-wing insanity videos here to set up the interview, I'll let everyone know where you can find me. I will be on the road in 2023. January 28th, I will be in Tucson, Arizona. I'm going to be doing a stand-up show, and there's going to be a screening of my short film, Loner. You can get tickets at ronplacone.com. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout for discounted tickets. That's an early bird /holiday special. So get them now. That's for a limited time only. February 10th, I'll be at the Glendale Room in Los Angeles, California. First of three-show residency there. February 17th, 18th, San Diego, California. April 14th, back in LA at the Glendale Room. May 12th, third show at the Glendale Room in Los Angeles. You can get all information and tickets at ronplacone.com.
I'll definitely come to that LA show.
Yeah, it's right down the road. It's a cool space. The Glendale Room is a really it's a newer space in town, and yeah, I'm gonna be working on my festival hour there, so that's gonna be a fun batch of shows on a Friday night, folks.
So come on out. All right, it's that time. What time is it? It's time to switch over to Right-Wing Insanity Report.
Do we have time for, are we going to do a couple quick videos?
We are going to do all those videos, yeah. So before Steve Monacelli, who is going to be joining me in a minute, he covers right-wing extremism for Rolling Stone and a few other publications. We've had him on the show before. He's fantastic. He lives down in Texas, so films a lot of those great videos down there. But before we do that, yeah, so I have, we always go through our videos every week of just craziness that we see. So I have a list today. Let's, I do want to focus on something. So now that the GOP is in charge of the House, they're putting forth their ideas, candidates, whatnot, for their speaker, right? So they are not all on board with the same one general outcome there. So let's start with this video. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was recently on Steve Bannon's The War Room this week speaking about this specific thing. So let's go ahead and play
Wouldn't it be
that.
something if they picked her? Holy.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, play the video.
And politics is a blood sport. And because it is so difficult and you have to fight as hard as possible, and Steve, you know what that's like, we have to dig in sometimes and we have to do everything we can to stop our enemy. And the enemy is the Democrat Party. That's the enemy of America because they are destroying our country and selling us out. And so this is why our conference has to unify. And I say this, Andy Biggs is one of my dearest friends. I love him to death. Matt Gaetz, closest ally, somebody I trust all the time. All of these people that are involved in this challenge are my friends. And if, Jake Sherman wants to call it the MTG wing of the party, so be it. But I'm also willing to step out, and I know the ground. I know how it works on the inside and the outside. And we have to put someone in for speaker that is going to be elected and not allow the Democrats to pull away one or two because that's what they want to do. And they can do it. Believe me, it can be done. We have Republicans in there that would possibly make a deal, as hard as that is for people to believe.
I mean, so beyond the rhetoric of, yeah, they're the enemy, we're going to war, which is, typical from her. It's just becoming in the background. But beyond that, she's talking about having everybody unified under a specific speaker versus Matt Gaetz, who doesn't want to support McCarthy. We'll get to that video next. Do we have a whole little civil war breaking out inside their party? What's going on here?
No, they'll get in line, hook, line, and sinker. I just think it's amazing that she thinks anybody who might disagree with her, even in her own party, is somehow compromised by the Democrats. It's so freaking ridiculous.
She's so extreme.
And it's so funny. She's saying, I know how things work. Okay, well, apparently you don't know how electing a speaker works, because guess what happens? People are possible nominees for it, and you get to decide, and whoever the most people decide is the person, they get the gig. And it may or may not be the person you like, Marjorie.
But Ron, she's a fascist. She's a fascist. She's not about democracy.
So are her colleagues. So are all of her colleagues. The GOP is a neo-fascist party. And
100%,
but real quick,
but she wants who she wants, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hey, we got to switch gears here for just a second, and we got to say, Kelly Elaine, thank you so much for a very, very generous Super Chat contribution. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much. You help keep this show on the air, and you say that that is for Baby Lily. And,
Baby
we'll
Lily.
let Baby Lily know. So thank you so much for
Very
that.
generous.
And we'll give a quick thank you to everyone again. Robin, thank you. Tony, Peace, Robert Walker, Rich Four, Chris Garrett, John Ramsey, Nancy Bernard, and Kelly Elaine. Thank you all so much.
We appreciate the super chats. Also, Steve is
do.
here. Let's bring Steve in. Steve, you want to come join? Yes, there's my friend Steve. How are you?
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, howdy. So we're just started playing some of the right-wing insanity videos for the week. We just had Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm going to next play Matt Gaetz is not supporting Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. Let's play this real quick.
Who would those five people be?
Well, I think that they would be the people that reliably adhere to the promises that they make to their voters. I'm not here to like out or dox anybody. I'll let people make their own announcements in their own time. I'm making my announcement, which is that I'm not voting for Kevin McCarthy. I'm not voting for him tomorrow. I'm not voting for him on the floor. And I am certain that there is a critical mass of people who hold my precise view. And so the sooner we can sort of dispense with the notion that Kevin's going to be speaker, then we can get to the important work of actually looking at who are the people that
Thoughts?
Dude, Matt Gaetz is like if a Taco Bell rapper fucked an STD. Like, he is just so. How is that guy not in jail? It's
Steve meet Ron. Ron meets Steve.
Oh, hi, Steve. Don't worry, I won't be here for the interview. But
I've seen him a few times in person, and I'll just say he's like remarkably shiny, which
like a Taco Bell rapper.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, that's incidentally the case for Taco Bell rappers. Most of them are
shiny.
or soggy, depending on how long it's been sitting there. But gosh, yeah, I mean, are y'all ready for Marjorie Taylor Greene, speakership? Like,
no,
you ready?
Like,
there'll be some sound bites. I mean, those will be interesting.
It's just like absolute nonstop comedy hour at this point on the right. It's just amazing. I want to put up Mark Fincham. Okay, Mark Fincham, who is running for in Arizona. Put up this. Can we put this up, Colin? So the guy isn't even close in his election. He is getting completely blown out of the water. This is not a nail biter. He's not neck and neck in his race. But he's already putting out this rhetoric about stop the steal. If I don't win, I don't like the outcome, the election is stolen. So it's already beginning. And I think we're going to see more of this.
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned about the sort of intersection between this rhetoric and the growth of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association type ideologies. Because if you go to these events sort of at the very local level, which is something that I've done in the North Texas area, you hear a lot of the same rhetoric around the sheriffs are the people who can arrest anybody they want, according to these folks, and that, they're the ones who can kind of interpret the Constitution, and they want those people to be able to have a ton of power over our elections.
That's right. Especially in a state like Arizona. So
yeah.
Can I
and
ask?
Mark Fincham has explicitly been aligned with that
constitutional
group.
sheriffs, yeah.
Yes.
Well, can I ask? Because I'm not going to be here for the interview. I'll be bouncing soon. But can I ask? Can I ask one question? Because I know this is like a beat that you research a lot. What would you say is how much kind of infiltration is there between kind of extreme right-wing militant groups and law enforcement? Like if you had to kind of give like a quantifier.
So I don't know if I can give a number, because I feel like quantifying it's just, I'm going to make it up basically on the spot. I mean, there are some studies that suggest that the percentages are disturbing. They're double-digit percentages in some instances. And I mean, I'll just give you a quote that'll answer maybe, the question better than just kind of throwing out a vague number, which is something that a former FBI agent who was undercover said on a panel I was on about extremism, which was
Mike German.
Yeah, he was like,
we had him on the show 2 weeks ago. He's fantastic.
Yeah, so Mike German, very insightful guy,
Yeah.
has written a good book about the FBI after leaving it that's pretty critical of their practices in sort of the 21st century. And he basically was like, well, there were investigations I was told I couldn't talk about because there were people inside the Bureau that might have been sympathetic or could have been a sort of a counterintelligence threat, basically. So that's, I mean, there's been reports about it that come from the organs of government themselves. So it's not just like a left-wing talking point.
No, it's definitely
by
not.
any means.
No,
It's
cool. I mean,
definitely-
yeah, that was, I mean, disturbing double digits. That's a good enough answer for me.
I mean, the Oath Keepers was born out of constitutional sheriffs, right? So the original group of Oath Keepers it was a requirement that you were either in law enforcement or military. So those guys are definitely overwhelmingly from that neck of the woods. All right, so the next video I want to play for you is just bizarre. This is Lauren Whiskey, and she's the Delaware Republican Party's nominee for the U.S. Senate. Let's just play this video.
And in regards to women voting, that was the worst thing that ever happened to America, too. Look at us now. Women overwhelmingly vote on their emotions. And their emotions, and the liberals are very good at appealing to emotions. Oh, look at these migrant children. They have nowhere to go. Look at this pregnant migrant woman. She has nowhere to go. We have got to open up our borders and give her cash assistance for the rest of her life here in America. And women vote for that. They vote to have weapons taken away, our Second Amendment rights taken away. Women used to vote, they used to not vote because their husband would make the choice for them. Now, if just our husbands and landowners were voting, we'd be in a much better place than we are now. We'd have closed borders, we'd have no infringements on our Second Amendment rights. Red flag laws would be a thing of the past. And we as women wouldn't be, have such authority and power over who gets into elected office because we don't deserve it. The way that women vote, it's been terrible. I'm apologizing as a female voter for the rest of my fellow female voters because they are voting our country away, and it is extremely dangerous.
Wow, that was. Who was the hosting her?
I don't
know
remember.
Who that was?
I don't remember.
Because he kind of, I mean, this is just like watching his face, but he kind of looked like, he kind of looked awkward, like he wanted to agree with her, but also like, I probably shouldn't though. Like he was just like, he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be voting. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. But can I?
There's so many things wrong here. There's so many things wrong here. I mean, number one, the idea that women all vote as a block and we're monolithic is just absolutely absurd. There are women that are warmongers. There are women that are peaceniks. I mean, like any other group, that's just not the case. But to deride herself in this way, I mean, she just ran for office, and now she thinks we should get rid of right to vote for. Like, it's just, this was the most batshit thing I've seen in a while, to be frank.
Did she lose?
No.
Oh, she won. Oh, okay. I was saying maybe she's pissed off that she lost, and she's like, well, I blame my women for this.
No, this is not somebody I've ever seen before. Obviously, this is a local thing, but I was like, okay. All right. Now we are going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about a court case that happened this week in Portland. So Andy Ngo is basically, this was the state of Oregon versus John Hacker. Basically, this was Oregon putting on trial John Hacker for stealing Andy Ngo's phone, robbery in the third degree. He ended up being not guilty of that charge. But I thought the more interesting aspect of the case was actually Andy Ngo's cross-examination, because it seems at more than one point in his cross-examination, he wasn't being entirely honest about some things in the past. So Steve and I are going to go through this, and I guess you're going to go, Ron. It's been
I'll be
nice
watching from the wings. But
right on.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Smash that like button, and if you are able to, please become a member of Status Coup/join. And of course, you can find my tour info at ronplacone.com, and happy interview.
Thank you. All right. So Colin, let's put up the testimony video. So I thought what we would do is go through this video, Steve, and we can like stop it and start it at certain points where we want to add commentary to what he's saying. And I also have obviously some links that would refute some of the remarks that he is giving throughout the testimony. So sound good?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Colin, let's go ahead and play that.
To authenticate it so that there's foundation for it to be admitted.
Any objection to Exhibit 4 being played? Your Honor, our only objection would be on completeness grounds, and I think some questions in aid of objection might be instructive. Go ahead. Mr. No, this is not the complete video that you submitted to the police, is it?
This is the complete file.
You clipped that video, didn't it?
No.
You would acknowledge that Mr. Hacker is the last person holding the phone in the video.
Yes.
And you would agree that he handed the phone to staff just after this video cuts off.
That I don't know.
So is it your testimony under oath that it's your understanding that Mr. Hacker stopped the video?
I don't know how the video stopped.
Okay, but you acknowledge she was the last person holding it when it ends?
He would be, yes.
Okay. No further questions, we'll withdraw the objection. All right, exhibit.
All right, so let's pause it there for a second. So basically what's happening here is the prosecutor's the gal that's sitting on the one table. The defense attorney is the one that's speaking to Andy. Andy's in the stand there. So he clips everything, right? So for him to say, no, this isn't a clipped video. And what you see in the video is that basically there's an altercation. It's inside a gym. John dumped a glass of water over his head or something. So there's obviously been back and forth between these two guys for weeks prior to this. John it says to him, I don't want to be recorded. Andy keeps recording. John takes the video out of his hand. John returns the phone to the gym manager, so he wasn't leaving the property with the phone, so no robbery occurred. He just handed it to the gym manager, and that was that. So,
yeah, not only that, I mean, the key thing when someone is facing a criminal charge like this is proving criminal intent, which they were unable to do in this case.
Right, so that was the idea that John took the phone out of his hand with the intent to actually steal it. Yeah, I don't think they could even come close to making that be the case. I found it really strange that the prosecution office would even take this to trial, to be frank, but here we are. All right, Colin, let's play a little bit more because it gets more interesting.
Play the video.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry, I realized I need to adjust my volume because I have it off so that it won't be disruptive. Okay.
So this is the actual video they're going to play so people can see it.
Sir, please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone. Here, hey. Excuse me, sir. Please don't do that. I don't want to have to go into like revoking the.
Okay, so I apologize. I kind of jumped around at the beginning a little bit. I'm going to play it again so that we can talk about it. So, right there, what's happening right there?
That was the first physical contact when he hit the phone out of my hand and it hit the ground.
Okay. Play it again. So at this point, right here, is that Mr. Hacker we can see?
Yes.
Do you know who the gentleman to his right is?
That's Mr. Wallace, gym manager.
And so, because we can see him, you're holding this phone?
Yes.
Okay, so this is when you picked it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Please, sir, please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
And at that point, what's happening?
That's when he forcibly grabbed it out of my hand.
Okay. Here, hey.
Excuse me, sir.
Just, well, what we see here, this stairway, is that the stairs down to the exit that you were talking about?
Yes. And in this still, Mr. Hacker has the phone in his hand.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions to that video, so I'm going to disconnect this. So we talked a little bit about you had seen Mr. Hacker before this date. Are you currently involved in a civil suit against Mr. Hacker?
I am.
All right, yeah, so let's stop here for a second.
The same conduct that we...
So part of what she's talking about now, and I think this is a really important part of the conversation, Andy Ngo has actually filed a civil suit against John Hacker as a named defendant. A couple of other people are named defendants, and also 50 John Does are named defendants. It's basically a lawsuit against Rose City Antifa. He's accusing them of carrying on some, I think the words he uses is some level of terrorism against him for years or whatever. You know, every word he says is very hypersensitive. So the question that when I saw this was like, how does this help his civil litigation lawsuit against these folks if he's doing this today? Like, it doesn't seem, to me, I think that this could harm his case.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't necessarily give a well-studied opinion on it. But having these sorts of things on the record in a losing case doesn't necessarily look good on face value. I am surprised that it was taken up and had gotten this far. You know, I've seen personally a number of incidents where people sort of get their phones slapped out of their hands.
I've had it happen to me multiple times, and I've never pressed charges for that.
At events, yeah, and it's usually when people are getting in each other's faces pretty willfully and on purpose, and I mean that in instances of both like journalists and non-journalists doing this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, to escalate it to this point whenever there was no real harm done and no actual like meaningful property crime or even intellectual property crime or stealing something from his phone or evidence. I mean, I haven't heard any sort of claims or proof of any of those things occurring. Yeah, so to have all of these sorts of depositions occur and have this evidence, I do wonder how it will factor into that, you know, sort of sweeping case, which itself seems tenuous at best.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's play further into the testimony.
Talked about here today.
Plus something that has happened after.
And we're just gonna talk about what's happening here today, but when did you file that?
Mr. Hacker was served in July of 2020.
And why did you file that suit?
After the May 2019 incident involving Mr. Hacker at the gym, I waited months and months and months for a charge to be brought or charges to be brought against the suspect, and nothing happened. Waited a year and decided to move forward with a civil lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. No. I don't have any other questions for you now.
Thank you.
Okay, cross-examination.
Here we go.
Hi, Mr. No. You stated under oath just a few minutes ago that the situation became very dangerous for you in Portland.
Yes.
And that you were getting death threats.
Yes.
You reported to Sky News in 2021 that you actually fled Portland.
Yes.
You moved to London.
For a time.
So you moved to a totally different country.
Yes.
Across an ocean.
Yes.
Because of threats you received.
And violence I have suffered.
And violence you've suffered. And that's because you've become very recognizable.
I don't believe it that the violence against me is because I'm recognizable. It's because I do reporting on far less violent extremists who believe in engaging in political violence against their targets.
You don't believe that the fact that you have 1 million Twitter followers has something to do with you being targeted?
No, because there are other celebrities in the political sphere who have even larger followings who don't have to live under the type of safety and security restrictions that I do.
Okay, but you did just testify that you think the targeting is a result of your reporting.
Yes.
Okay, so you would acknowledge then, at the very least, that your online rhetoric and reporting can make you a target.
I acknowledge that there are ideological violent extremists who take issue with my crime reporting.
Yes or no, Mr. No, you would acknowledge that your reporting can make you a target.
Yes.
And by the same logic, you would understand why someone else might not want to be made a target.
Yes.
Yeah.
You understand intuitively that having 1 million Twitter followers, at the time of these events, over 100,000, you tweet about someone, that can make them a target.
Silence.
Your Honor, I just want to make sure that we're not going to go into a realm that's not relevant to this.
You recognize that when you tweet about someone, they can become a target.
Mods!
No, I don't
Mods!
recognize that.
Are you saying under oath that you don't understand your ability with 1 million Twitter followers to potentially make a target of someone that you designate online?
I do reporting on individuals, organizations, and events.
Thank you. It's a yes or no question.
Ask the question again.
Okay. Are you saying under oath that you do not acknowledge that it's possible when you post about someone online to your 1 million followers that they may become a target?
Can you define target?
Receiving unwanted attention, threats, and the kind of violence that you've testified about receiving yourself.
Ask the question again, please.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that when you tweet about someone online, it can potentially make them a target in the same way that you've been targeted?
He doesn't want to answer it.
Yes.
There we go.
He's really hoping for his lawyer
Keyword
to
there
step
being
in
potential.
and get this line of questioning to end.
Do you acknowledge
Exactly.
it's possible? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I just heard some commentary from the background about what's being said.
Okay, let's stop it right there, Colin, for a second. So I want to, Colin, I had sent you a tweet from John Hacker, like he tweeted, and I think this is important. So when I was watching the court case from the pool stream, I didn't know what had happened in the back of the room at the time. It turns out there was an altercation with some Andy Ngo supporters and some John Hacker supporters. So Colin, can we put it up? It's the John the Lefty status tweet. If you can find that one. So it basically says, before I play the video, judge had to be notified by deputies about the conflict with Andy and his supporters surrounding accosting one of my supporters in the hallway. I went back into the courtroom. When Andy approached room doors, you could hear him yelling, and judge lectured everyone. So I don't know if Colin can find that.
Give me I have the video. I'm just trying to find the original tweet.
Okay, don't worry about it. Do you want to just play the video? That's fine. I just read the tweet. Live people.
A couple people who are in the courtroom now having a disagreement and that they were filming each other. At least one person was filming somebody. I have two comments. One, as a legal matter, recording is not allowed in the public areas of the courthouse. So you can't record things in the hallway. Second, as a practical matter, I don't know anything about I don't know what the issue was, other than two people that were in the courtroom now had a dispute about each other and they're filming each other. No one is going to change anybody's mind if you have discussion in the hallway, and if you pull out the cameras and start videoing each other right now, just don't engage. You can, that's not an order, it's a practical suggestion that if you actually want to have a productive conversation with somebody, you can work on having a productive conversation, but it's unlikely that you're going to have a productive conversation here in the courthouse. And it doesn't do anybody any good to start pulling out the cameras. And I realize that this is an issue that's involved in this very case here. But I don't want there to be another case where somebody is filming somebody and someone pulls the camera out and then there's another robbery charge just because of what happened here watching the trial. So you can talk to whoever you want, but it would be probably in everyone's best interest to not talk. I'll just leave it at that. So Ms. Burgess, you may call your next witness.
He's like, yeah, can we not come back here again with another theft, robbery charge thing from these shenanigans in the back of the courtroom there? Crazy stuff. All right, so let's go back to the testimony because he gets to the point where he talks a little bit about May Day, and I think that's the nuts and the bolts of what's happening here.
Commentary. Answer. So, okay. I'll clarify my question. I was not asking whether you agree or disagree. I'm asking whether you have been criticized as such.
Yes, by my detractors.
That includes the Columbia University Journalism Review describing you as a, quote, discredited provocateur.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. There was no basis for this.
That was an opinion piece by a writer on that publication.
You've received criticism for dishonest reporting
From my detractors.
All right, so
were
let's stop it
fired,
there,
for example,
Colin, as
from
Steve's
Portland's-
breaking out to laughter. So this is another lie. So I sent a Colin. Can you pull up the PSU Vanguard? It's a link. It says, okay, in response to fired for reporting the truth. On May 12th, National Review published a piece written by former Vanguard multimedia editor Andy Ngo entitled Fire for Reporting the Truth. Ngo describes events surrounding the Vanguard's decision to remove him from his position as editor after tweeting a video clip from an April 26th interfaith event at Portland State. The Vanguard editorial team initially opted not to further report on or address this topic as we transparently outlined the events and ethics guiding the decision regarding Ngo in our initial coverage. Now, as Ngo's recent piece on the matter has placed the Vanguard under significant scrutiny, resulting in unjust threats and false assumptions, it has become necessary to address this misrepresentation. Below is the response from Vanguard's editor-in-chief, Colleen Larry. So he's completely lying here.
Also, a very quick Google search of Andy Ngo, CJR.org, which is the Columbia Journalism Review's website. It has a couple articles that pop up, but the one that specifically has the phrase discredited provocateur is not an opinion piece. It is a special report by Daniel Torov, and that was from 2019, called Drop Shipping Journalism. And yeah, he's like an award-winning writer. So I don't believe it was an opinion piece by any sort of fair characterization of it. Maybe it contained some things in it that Andy would prefer to be someone's opinion as opposed to be sort of, critical
Right.
analysis.
Right.
But that's
I mean,
a different
it's
story.
like the fact that he constantly has taken videos and edited them and lied about what happened. We've seen repeated examples of this. So I don't think it's an opinion either. I think it's just any other journalist would be fired for doing this thing, right? Because you're not telling the truth. But he seems to think that he doesn't have to be subject to these same ethical standards, right? All right. So I wanted to take a moment to highlight that. All right, let's go back to his testimony.
University for comments about Muslims.
I was not fired by Portland State University.
You were suspended as well by Twitter for racial and transphobic rhetoric.
Your Honor, I just feel like we're verging into a realm that is not relevant to the issue at hand.
You've regularly reported on rallies that included far-right groups.
Yes, insofar as both the far right and the far left were present.
Okay, understood. You've live streamed, for example, Patriot prayer events.
Your Honor, again, I'm just going to make a relevance objection. I have an idea of where this is going. If we need to have a separate discussion about this outside of the witness, I think that's fine, but I don't think this is relevant to what is happening.
We believe the evidence adduced today will include that events that I'm probing into were discussed on the date in question. They are immediately relevant. I'm talking about the protest.
Discussed by whom?
By Mr. Hacker and Mr. Ngo on May 7th, 2019. That Mr. Hacker's intent relates to some of Mr. Ngo's conduct, his perception of Mr. Ngo's conduct at those events, including something he already testified about May Day. So just days before they interacted. So
All right, hang on. Let's stop there, Colin.
Yeah, that's a really important material piece of evidence. Is my non-lawyer opinion, but
so
yeah.
we have that. Colin, let's now pull up the other video of the May Day. I think it starts at 9:10. You'll see Andy Ngo's in the video. So this is basically Patriot Prayer, which is a incredibly violent group of right-wingers associated with Proud Boys. But they are basically planning on going to this bar called a Cider Riot, is the name of the bar in Portland, to start a fight, to instigate a fight with a group of people that are out there drinking at the bar. I believe this was after a rally that day. It was May Day rally, and not everybody there was a far left extremist, regardless of what Andy said. I've seen plenty of video and photos from that day to know it was people celebrating labor rights, right? But let's pull up this video. Yeah. All right, so yes, this one, yes.
First three.
Let's go get a beer and say fuck it.
Huh? Okay.
I know a lot about fighting.
That is Andy in the blue shirt.
If we walked up in
Yes,
there,
they're all sitting there drinking and waiting.
How many are there?
Like,
They know we're coming because you put it on.
oh, they. Okay.
So
So we stroll by there. Are they coming out?
no, but they saw me and they know I'm telling. So
Let's just walk by there.
no,
Thing is, he's saying there's like a 50 or 100 guys out in the parking lot.
it's not.
I don't think we're going to be able to get
There's a
inside.
bunch of people with no jobs who don't care about going
walk
in.
around and walk. I'm down for that.
You think they'll rush
I used
us?
to meet
I
these
don't think
people.
they're
I know how
rushes,
they
but
fucking
it's
act.
just I don't know. Like the feeling is there's some tension there. So
You saw them?
yeah, oh yeah, they're there. They're there. I didn't recognize a lot of them, but they're. You see the tattoos, you see the shirts.
Sharks?
Do it like
Sharks?
sharks or
They're definitely not.
You're a
sharks.
featherweight. You're gonna fight in heavyweight,
They're
or are you
definitely
gonna
not
wait to be a
sharks.
heavyweight?
But they could just see us and just ignore us. But they would definitely.
What if we just cross the street? They're gonna come. They're gonna circle up and they're gonna clamp us.
If they come across
And the cops are gonna do
street,
shit because the cops are fucking on their side.
And not here.
But I mean, I say,
Like, there's no cops around.
we want to.
Yeah, the cops.
As long as
We're
if you're across
justified.
the street, as long as we're
They're going
across
to
the
arrest
street, I don't
us
know. But
for
if we're
fighting?
going right
We
next to
march
What they
up
do to
there.
the Proud Boys
Oh,
around the country?
So that's what I'm saying. If we're gonna do it across the street, not on the same street,
Don't
be
even
on
do
the
it.
side of it. Yeah, I'm not. For one, I'm not down to do it anyway. But
It's called a pre-fight indicator.
Yeah. I mean, how long till like Gibson gets here? And we have like some
There
more
you
fucking
go.
numbers.
That's not his numbers.
Yeah. All right.
his
I think
numbers are not
we
gonna
played
pull
enough of this. You get the point. So this carries on for quite a while, but they're clearly planning on going over there, starting instigating fights. And I don't know about you, Steve, but I don't think I have ever been in the vicinity of any activist planning anything like that and just stood around and not been like I would have left because it was just not something that I should be overhearing. That I don't want to know about that shit. But he's clearly waiting for them to go do this because he wants to film what happens next, right? It's like his, what was that, the Nightcrawler moment, right? Or and if he's not participating, it doesn't look like he's participating, but he's aware of it. My thing is how do you then turn around and say on Twitter, have all your tweets on Twitter saying left-wing extremists, violent extremists, Antifa started fights, left-wing extremists, Antifa attacked people. Like it's just not being truthful is my point. There's no veracity there.
So, Andy Ngo's lawyer sent a nasty letter to the Portland Mercury, which had reported on this incident, and they demanded a retraction.
We actually have a copy of it. Colin, do you want to put that up?
Yeah.
As you're talking, we'll show the letter.
So, demanded a retraction regarding a number of things about, specifically that he made a smile when the group cracked jokes, alleging that was, them saying he was condoning their plans to commit violence, which in the beginning of the video, you can kind of see him paying attention. I don't know. He kind of has a smirk, or I don't know if it's a smile, but he doesn't necessarily seem stern. I'm trying to find if there was.
He's clearly not. My thing is this: he's clearly not neutral.
Yeah, and there's this idea that like maybe he was ignoring it or he couldn't hear it. I've read this in response to the articles highlighting his presence there, and my response to this would be the phone is picking up the audio, and having filmed plenty of things in events and sort of environments like that, if they were able to hear it, he was able to hear it based on the distance that he was at. And to not report on it is perhaps a choice, but to claim no knowledge of it is a different thing.
It's a different thing. It's a straight up lie. It's not being truthful about what happened. Yeah, so that's where where it kind of gets awry for me. It's one thing, you're right. If he chooses not to report on them planning this, okay, I would say he probably should. But if he chooses not to do that, fine. But now he's straight up just lying about what happened. He's saying that it's Antifa, right?
Yeah.
So
journalists sometimes feel like they have to hold their cards in order so that they can keep access.
100%.
If they're gonna, report on like some racist group, you don't want to report everything that they immediately say if you want to actually kind of get deeper. But like that doesn't seem like that's what's happening here.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's different when you go to the bridge where I'm going to actually lie and change the narrative of what happened. That's, to me, you've crossed the line there, right? So I can respect holding your cards. I can respect not necessarily disclosing everything you see and hear 100%. That's the case. But when you purposefully try to change the narrative and say something that's completely not true, then it becomes a problem. So yeah, they went after the Mercury, and the Mercury stood by the reporting and said, no, we're not retracting a thing. So, and in fact, the article's still up. Yeah. All right, so let's go on to the next thing. Because what happened that day, for folks that don't know, maybe we should talk about that for a second. That is also a centerpiece of his civil lawsuit against Rose City Antifa, right? Was some of the things that happened that day. That's now known as the Cider Riot May Day protests. But I want to point out that, because this is going to become important in a minute, there was a woman that was hit that day by somebody named Ian Kramer, who was with Patriot Prayer. She was hit so hard on the back of either her neck or back with a metal baton that she was unconscious, and it ended up being the fact that she had a broken vertebrae. Yeah. So very serious charges. He has now been sentenced. In fact, we can pull up the DA's tweets on this, just to give folks an idea of what all of this is about if you haven't paid attention to the storyline. Okay, so this is the DA's office. Today, Multnomah County DA Mike Schmidt announced Ian Kramer pleaded guilty to 1 count of riot, 1 count of assault in the 2nd degree, and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon. I think there might be a second tweet there, yeah. So the conviction means that Kramer admits that on May 1st, 2019, he, along with 5 or more others, engaged in tumultuous and violent conduct and intentionally or recklessly created a grave risk of causing public alarm, and that he used a baton to cause physical injury to another person. The court imposed a 20-month prison sentence with credit for time already served. Kramer will also be on 5 years of formal probation. So, yeah. That was one of the guys that day. All right, so let's go back to his testimony, unless you want to add something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this is exactly what, is important in terms of the context that Hacker's lawyer was arguing for. So I guess, yeah, play the clip and we'll get to it.
Yeah, okay.
If it's not relevant.
It's also, we're fully outside the scope of the direct at this point.
Okay. So I'm overruling the objection about outside the scope. And in terms of relevance, I'd ask that you kind of get to the meat of this rather quickly, okay?
Fair enough. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ngo, you're aware that some of your reporting, some of your rhetoric online has instigated violence?
No.
You're aware that some of the people that you have posted about have received just the same kind of threats that you've received?
I'm not aware.
So you're not aware of what your Twitter followers are doing?
As you mentioned, I have over 1 million followers on Twitter. I don't read the comments from hundreds of thousands of people.
Understood. So you can't really keep track of what happens as a response to your tweets?
Not in every tweet.
Okay. So it's possible then that some of your reporting has led to violence?
No.
Just a moment ago, you said you don't have the time or you can't keep track of what your followers do. And now you're saying it's not even possible that some of your posting can lead to violence?
It's a theoretical about what could happen, and it wouldn't be accurate for me to give a yes or no answer to that.
The point is you don't know.
Huh.
They're asking him to speculate. That's what defense is at. He's asking him to speculate about the actions or thoughts of people that he doesn't know. This is purely.
So, yeah.
Hang on, pause it for a
Yeah,
second.
hit a pause
Andy
there.
does this. Andy does the same thing about other people all day long, and his followers have absolutely committed violence. This is
All right.
not debate.
Yeah, so two
Go.
things, because I didn't realize where we were in this clip. So the vertebrae thing, if we aren't going to get to it soon, it's super important because Andy at one point in his testimony says, oh, hacker said something about breaking vertebrae and claimed that that was a threat, when what hacker was talking about was this violent incident where this woman's vertebrae had been broken. That Andy had been there for and had been with the group prior to the fight, near the man, I believe, who broke her vertebrae. Secondly, I'm going to read just real briefly. This is from an article in the magazine that I published, Protean Magazine, by Shane Burley. And it starts like this. I have an experience in common with a number of other reporters on the left. It goes like this. I suddenly noticed that my Twitter notifications are blowing up. I didn't recently publish anything noteworthy, so why the attention? When I check them, I'm in for a string of insults. My appearance, the unworthiness of my work, my intellectual inferiority, whatever the angle may be. Often it goes darker into homophobia, anti-Semitism, threats of violence. I, like a lot of people, am often able to trace this experience back to one person, Andy Ngo. He has branded me as an Antifa ideologue. Sometimes tagging my Twitter account while accusing me of some nefariousness he's sure I'm responsible for. So, this is all to say that this was published in 2021. If he wanted to understand this, he could read this sort of stuff like this. So it's one thing to say, to be certain that none of this is possible. It's another thing to say that he doesn't know.
He knows.
But you can't say both.
Right. You can't have it both ways, Andy. Sorry. And you're right on this. Like I've had his guys come after me when he has me blocked on Twitter and he has still tagged me in things. Like he tags my handle even though he has me blocked. And you always know when this happens because you're right. A bunch of like.
It happened to me literally like the other week. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very annoying. And it's really kind of cowardly, and he absolutely does know. And it kind of blows my mind too, Steve, because he got hit with a milkshake. We've all seen that video, doused with water. I'm like, Andy, come on, just stop it. I've had my phone broken more than once, taken out of my hand. I've been literally punched in the face twice. I have been bear maced by these guys. I have been subject to all kinds of violence. I reach out to a Proud Boy for comment, and he asks me if I'm a Jew. So it's like when he says this, like, I'm afraid I have to leave the country stuff, I kind of roll my eyes because it's like, bro, this is, an occupational hazard, especially when you go to the extent that you do, where you're being dishonest in your reporting. Like it's all this victim thing. Is it just a giant grift? Is it because he gets more clicks?
Yeah, well, that's the headline of the article that I was quoting. Andy Knows Unmasked, the next phase of the grift.
The next phase of the grift. There you go. All right, let's go back to the testimony.
It's not appropriate.
Overruled.
Overruled.
I'll move forward. You were reporting as you testified on May Day.
Yes.
And is May Day kind of a special day in the protest world? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. What sort of things go on May Day?
Demonstrations and rallies and protests.
Okay. And this occurred just a few days before the 24-hour fitness incident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You specifically, and I just want to make sure, so you're understanding that both you and Mr. Hacker were at that event?
I saw him that day.
Okay, so you saw him there. You reported very specifically that the only violence that day came from the left.
I guess question Nate, objection. When he said it would be helpful to know what we're talking about.
I can be more specific.
It's insane.
Your online content as a journalist, in the capacity of a journalist about the events that day, indicated that the only violence that day came from the left.
Can you refer to a specific thing that I wrote? Because
all
I don't
of it,
recall what
dude.
you're talking about. That
You
would
don't recall your
characterize that.
reporting that day?
Wow.
I posted videos that day. I didn't do commentary.
Yeah, but you called everybody
did not
Antifa
report
violent extremists. Come on, man.
that a person who you believed was associated with Antifa had her vertebrae broken, did you?
Your Honor, he's asking about what he didn't report, and Mr. Nose already said he didn't post any commentary and he doesn't remember.
No, Your Honor, he asked to be more specific and that he didn't recall. I'm refining the question. Maybe it'll jog his memory. And this goes directly to something he said, Mr. Hacker said, on the date in question.
All right, objection's overruled.
What's the question?
Did you or did you not report on someone who had their vertebra broken by a Patriot Prayer member?
I tweeted out a video that was recorded by another live streamer that day of an individual being hit with a weapon and collapsing to the ground. That video I shared on my social media.
But you did not report
i.e.
that there
he
were
stole
any
video from somebody
injuries
else and posted it.
or any violence other than that perpetrated by people on the left.
Your Honor, he's already answered this question. He said he just posted videos and did not post commentary. We're just going in circles at this point.
Because he's not being honest.
Your Honor, I'd respond that the witness is doing their best not to answer the questions, which is why I'm having to follow up so many times.
Overruled.
What's the question?
The only posting, the only reporting you did that day that talked about violence was by folks on the left, and specifically excluded any reference to someone on the left having their vertebra broken.
No, as I just said a moment ago, I posted video that was recorded by another video live streamer that day. I posted my clips on Twitter as well as YouTube, which showed brawling involving left and right.
So you acknowledge today that the right was involved in violence on that day, the right in your mind?
I believe I've always characterized it as a brawl.
Understood. So let's just talk about the actual day in question. So bringing us up to May 7th, 2019. You testified under oath today that Mr. Hacker made some comment about breaking vertebra, and that's when you got really scared.
Yes.
That's your testimony today, under oath.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You told something completely different to the police, didn't you?
Boom.
No.
You told the police that Mr. Hacker made several statements, including, do you know someone had their vertebra broken?
Predict what I said under oath.
That doesn't contradict what you said. You said under oath that he said a comment about breaking vertebra, and that's what made you really scared.
I didn't remember the full quote.
Okay, so you don't remember.
What I remembered was something about breaking vertebrae.
Okay, so you just misremembered the quote.
Okay, so let's take a pause there. This is wild to me. So basically, what he told the cops the first time was accurate, and it was basically John Hacker's bringing up what had happened a few days earlier, where this woman had her vertebrae broken by one of the Patriot Front guys, or Patriot Prayer guys, and now he's saying in his testimony that I was afraid because it felt like John Hacker was threatening to break my vertebrae, which is totally false.
Yeah, I mean, it's a selective sort of clipping, a very dishonest clipping of statements that, the words perhaps were used in the statement, but the sensible meaning that any reasonable person would comprehend.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them seeing those two things as being the same, at least framed as if someone said something about breaking bones and I got scared, as if that framing the statement as they're the victim of a terroristic threat, right. Which is its own charge, to be clear. That is illegal in some states to make those sorts of charges, those sorts of threats in front of someone with a reasonable intent or for that person to fear for their life, but that isn't what happened here.
Right. No, it's not what happened. So, so he got kind of caught up in that because it's pretty obvious what's going on here. All right, let's go back to the video.
Why didn't he stomp on it?
All right,
Why didn't
these
he
are closed.
throw
This
it
is the
off
closing
second
argument.
story? Why didn't he throw it against the wall? He didn't. The phone was recovered, and the phone itself was fully functional after only about 15 seconds. That sounds like a temporary dispossession. That sounds like what the case law suggests does not qualify as a criminal intent for theft, for robbery. And it also cuts both ways. I mean, he makes two statements. He says, you know, I don't want to be recorded, and I'll break the fucking phone. Is it that he doesn't want to be recorded, or does he literally mean he wants to smash the phone? Your Honor, I put it to you that if he had wanted to smash the phone, he would have.
Your Honor, throughout this trial and that closing, there's been a lot of noise.
Noise.
A lot of talk about Twitter, about Cider Riot, about Antifa. Things
All
that
of Andy's
Andy's
favorite
asking you
things.
Exactly. It's his
to
greatest
read
hits.
into Mr. Hacker's mindset. That doesn't matter. What matters here are the facts of the case that we have before us. You are the finder of fact and the finder of law, and what we need from you is to look at the facts and determine if they happened and if they apply to the law in this case. And I ask that you ignore all of the noise that is not relevant to the very contained incident on May 7th, 2019. Your Honor, we don't have to show that Mr. Hacker permanently deprived. We just have to show that he attempted. And he did. That is what the facts of this case show. Very clearly, Mr. Hacker is trying to claim that he was scared. But in reality, this all started because he was angry. He confronted Mr. No. And he himself told you. He just took the phone. He wasn't thinking.
If someone said, I'm going to steal this pen, I grab it, and as soon as I get it, you know, my conscience hits me. I was like, you know what? I'm not taking that. I put it down. Bang, bang. I still had the intent to permanently steal this pen, right? And so if I found, as a factual matter, if the finder of fact thought that I did intend to steal this as soon as I grabbed it, that's theft. Or at least it's attempted theft, right?
I would say that's likely correct.
Okay. Ms. Burgess, so I know you said a number of times that there doesn't have to be proof that Mr. Hacker actually committed theft, but attempted to theft is sufficient. And you agree with that, Mr. Scissors?
Based on the reading of the statute, yes.
So, but to have attempted theft, the person still has to have the intent to permanently deprive the person of the property, right?
Correct.
It's just they didn't complete it.
Correct.
Or in my hypothetical about the pen, the person just changed their mind and changed their intent, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And
so in this case, Mr. Hacker did give the phone back voluntarily. I mean, no one like snatched it out of his hands, right?
I don't agree with that character.
Was there any testimony that someone took it out of his hands and?
Well, he gave it voluntarily to the gym manager when the gym manager said, I don't want to have to revoke your membership after he left the scene and they were asking him to give it back. So voluntarily is a little bit of a stretch.
All right, let's pause there for a second. So those are the edited down and closing arguments from both sides. I don't think that this case should have gone to trial, personally. I mean, I've had my phone taken out of my hand multiple times. Steve, I'm sure you have too. You get it back, whatever, you move on. it's an occupational hazard as far as I'm concerned. Protesters do it to each other all day long. This is not theft. And to like waste the state resources on something like this seems really wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just absurd. And the fact that at the very least some testimony came out of this to help continue to illustrate how this happens, right, and how this sort of propaganda doesn't really stand up under scrutiny. I think it's valuable.
I think it's valuable too. Yeah, I mean, we've saw it in the cross-examination more than once. He had to stop and not say anything for a good 10 seconds because he didn't want to, perjure.
Mm-hmm.
Or he would say, ask me the question again. Ask me the question again. So I think he's well aware that what he puts out isn't entirely a commitment to truth. He knows it. I don't think he cares. Yeah.
And we just got to celebrate the wins when they happen.
All right. 100%. So now we have the closing argument, or the verdict, sorry. Verdict.
I'm going to make in a case like this, but this is an unusual case, and there's obviously political and social issues at play here and interest in the case, and I think it's maybe helpful to have someone from hopefully an objective perspective to make some comments. And I'm not suggesting that I'm going to change the world with these comments. But I would like to say some things to hopefully get people thinking and maybe limit some problems like this in the future. We oftentimes hear about the political spectrum as being the far left and the far right. It's like this, but my take is it's really more of a circle that's closed at the bottom. And at the one side, that people are self-identified, at the left are very close to the people on the right at the bottom of the circle in terms of approaches they have and kind of beliefs. And the very core issues, they differ, but in so many different ways, they're aligned.
Pause, Colin, for a second. So, Steve, I don't know if you were able to watch this entire thing. The judge, I edited this down. He gave a good 15-minute spiel on like, are you guys kidding me with this nonsense? Just stop yourselves from engaging in this kind of stuff. I don't, this is nonsense. Like, I mean, he was really, he was not happy.
I think he has, there's a point to the circusness of some of this stuff. I mean, sure. And maybe I'm seeing it a little out of context because when I hear him saying like, it's like a circle and they meet at the bottom, like,
I don't agree.
Horseshoe theory. That's something that's already...
I don't agree with his political theorizing there at all, but I did find it interesting that he went to Chambers and said, I need to put my thoughts together. And then he came back and was like,
yeah, I was getting the sense that he was very much like trying to say without, allowing him to say, are you fucking kidding me with this shit? Because are you fucking kidding me with this shit? This is absurd.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the end thing here.
And I can certainly see that in this case. And I think it's important in every aspect of life, but especially when people are, really diametrically opposed, is to put oneself in the other's shoes and really ask themselves, what would I do if I was in this position that the other person was in? And I was struck when Mr. Hackhurst said that he essentially does the same things that he contends Mr. No does, in terms of putting people's information out on the internet, publicly identifying people if he considers that person to be dangerous. And it's really striking that, obviously there's some tension between the two of them, but they're effectively doing the same thing. And it just seems that they agree on the tactics, but they differ just on whose information should be out there. And they also disagree about the other person's tactics, even though they're doing the same thing. But the issue is not whether Mr. Hacker did the right thing or wrong thing. The issue is whether he had the requisite intent to rise to the level of robbery 3, which requires an intent to commit theft or attempted theft. And in order to do that, one would have to permanently deprive another of property, or keep it long enough so it effectively deprives the person of the property, and they'd have to have the intent to do that. And in this case, I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Hacker intended to keep Mr. Go's phone or to break it so Mr. Go could not use it. Rather, it would seem that Mr. Hacker he was frustrated in the moment and lashed out, but at least at a minimum, I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt at the moment that he grabbed the phone that he was intending to keep that from Mr. Go forever, that he intended to break it so Mr. Go couldn't get the video, he couldn't use the phone. So because of that, I'm finding Mr. Hacker not guilty. And I'm not, to be clear, this is not condoning what Mr. Hacker had to say. It's not condoning what Mr. Hacker had to do. And it's not a finding that Mr. Hacker didn't have this intent. It's simply a finding that I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very high standard, that Mr. Hacker had this intent. And I will say, and part of it was, how quickly he returned the property, and maybe he returned the property only because he didn't want to lose his 24-hour fitness membership. Maybe it was just because
those are hard to get.
He just said, "Well, I don't even know I have this phone. I just pulled it away, and I'm just going to give it back. I didn't intend to do anything with it." I don't know what the actual intent is, but I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Hacker did have the intent to permanently deprive Mr. Go of the phone, and therefore he's not guilty. And I will sign a judgment to that effect.
And end of story. End scene.
All right. All right.
So, so he's found not guilty. Again, I think the more interesting aspects of this, so some people were asking when this was. This was earlier this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe, were the 2 days that was actually the trial dates in Portland, Oregon. I do think that the more interesting aspect of this is Andy absolutely was not being entirely truthful on the stand. And I think he got a sense of knowing that that was the case because he continually paused, would say, reframe the question, re-ask the question. And we showed some counter evidence to that today.
This is
while
my
watching this,
shocked face that Andy wasn't telling the whole truth.
Right. So what are your parting thoughts on this, Steve? I know you got to get going soon.
Yeah, I got to go lift some heavy things. My parting thoughts on this, delicious, really nice to see, especially because Andy targeted me regarding a defamation lawsuit that we won in the appeals court, which he's never updated. He's never updated anything about.
I don't know about this, Steve. Can you give us a quick rundown on that? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, long story short, I wrote an article for a newspaper in Dallas that was about this newspaper called the Dallas Express, which is run by a very wealthy man, hotel magnate. Incidentally, we have a lot of those that are politically involved in this country. And he basically bought the rights or restarted a newspaper under the same brand as a historic Black progressive newspaper that went defunct many decades ago. It was like the one of the oldest and most significant in Texas, in the South. Okay. And I wrote about how it had some connections, some very blatant connections to a larger network of sort of propagandistic websites, and I called it propaganda, and he sued me saying that it was defamatory to call it propaganda. But Bloomberg Law ran a nice little article about it, among some others, that said Dallas Weekly defeats libel claims brought by conservative donor. And so when that lawsuit first was filed, of course, Andy jumped on the opportunity to use that as a way to attack someone who he perceives as his enemy. Yeah. And it's who knows exactly why he decided he wanted to do that. Maybe it's because we published that article in my magazine about him. Whatever, but he used that to try to drag me through the mud and say that I do fake news, but we prevailed in court. The appeals court has left the door open for sanctions against this person for bringing this lawsuit against us so frivolously. Right. And that's kind of, some of that's still playing out, but that's all to say that I wouldn't have I wouldn't have been any happier, I guess, if this had been, even more like it's just so delicious. I don't know how this could have been better is really what I'm saying. So like, I'm glad that we got to see a little taste of this, and that someone like him is kind of facing scrutiny in the way that he deserves it.
No, I agree. It's just kind of wild though that he couldn't see the outcome eventually getting caught up with him of, not being honest about things that, I mean, how many times has he taken other people's videos, edited part of it out and posted it? I mean, he wasn't even there. And he had to have known that what he was posting wasn't entirely authentic because he watched the full length of the clip before he edited out the part that he wanted to, include. That was like,
I mean, sometimes I guess maybe you start to get high on your own supply or something, or you start to really believe your own bogus stuff.
Yeah,
hard to say.
Indeed. Steve, if people want to follow you, keep up with your writing and all that, where's the best place to do that? I know you're currently you're locked into fake Elon, Italian Musk or whatever it is.
I'm Italian Elon Musk, but I'm at Steve Vanzetti on Twitter. You can still find me with my name, Steve Monacelli.
Okay.
That should be easy enough. And I mean, Twitter apparently is probably about to lose a fuck ton of employees. Rumors are that like many of them have not accepted this offer. So we'll see how that goes. It may not be the best place to follow me, but at least start there and then maybe subscribe to my free newsletter so I can have your email in case this all goes to shit.
In case it all blows up, yeah. Are you going to go to Mastodon or is that
I'm there. I don't use it a ton yet. I don't know if it's really going to solve the problem, but yeah, I'm figuring out my alternatives. So I am there as well. If you use that, good luck finding me on the federated, universe.
I know that's the problem. It's really, it's just so spread out. You can't really figure.
Yeah.
Like the whole server thing is very confusing.
It's not a global chat room. So there you go. Well, thanks for having me. I got to run.
Right on. Thanks for joining us today on Right Wing Insanity. And then everybody, we will see you next week.